joining us now, a man who did a phenomenal job in helping ensure that Brett Kavanaugh was confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States. John Cornyn from the great state of Texas. Senator, it's great to have you on, and thank you for all you did
well, thank you, Laura.
some sanity into the process.
It was a privilege. It was the results were a little uncertain at times, but we got it done and got a good man on the Supreme Court. I couldn't be happier.
Senator, make sure you speak up. You're a little bit soft there.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. That's much better. So, Senator, what do you take away from the level of vitriol and fury, okay, after the Kavanaugh or during the Kavanaugh confirmation process? Like, I clerked for Justice Thomas on his second year on the court, and I was in D.C. studying for the bar exam when the Anita Hill hearing happened, and there were some protests, but it was nothing like it is right now. Nothing. It's much worse, and it's much more hate-filled.
Absolutely. I mean, the Democratic Party that I used to know has gotten hijacked by people who disrupt hearings. Normally mild-mannered senators like Cory Booker proudly proclaim, "I'm breaking the rules" by releasing confidential information during the hearing. And then you see senators being assaulted in airports, run out of restaurants with their spouses, and just people being threatened. And, you know, it wasn't, I think Steve Scalise and Rand Paul can probably testify to this best, but, you know, at some point it gets to the level of incitement. We're not talking about free speech. We're talking about inciting people to violence, like Eric Holder did, which is dangerous. And I don't think we ought to reward that at all.
Now, and it seems to me that the more successful, Senator Cornyn, this administration is, the more Congress unites with the president on issues such as this, when they stand united. It's almost like it's driving the left into an uncontrolled frenzy. And they can't stand it. The better America is doing, they are more and more angry.
Well, as you know, Laura, the holy grail for the left is the Supreme Court, and they can't stand the idea that President Trump has now appointed two outstanding nominees to the Supreme Court, as well as are confirming a large number, probably the largest at this point in any presidency, Court of Appeals judges and district judges, and this is driving them, I think, to this unattractive, to say the least, sort of activism, which, frankly, I mean, do we want to turn the government over to these people after the midterm elections? I don't think so.
There was an interview with your colleague Ted Cruz's challenger the other day, Beto O'Rourke, about the confirmation of Kavanaugh. I'm going to play it and get your reaction. Let's listen.
Let me get you on the record on Judge Kavanaugh. Would you have voted to confirm him?
I would not have. We need a Supreme Court justice who believes in voting rights. A justice who believes in a woman's right to make her own decision about her own body and have access to the health care that ensures that she can. He fails the bar on each and every single one of those tests. So the next justice to be nominated can only be confirmed if he, or importantly she, can meet those qualifications.
Your reaction to that?
Well, Beto, I know Beto pretty well, and he's a nice enough guy, but clearly he's not running for the United States Senate from Texas. He's out of step with Texas values, and in this and every other important area. My only suspicion, Laura, is he's running for the Democratic nomination for president in 2020 because he's appealing to the national Democrats and the hard left, who are we're seeing create this sort of mob rule.
And Senator, what is your best take right now on the Republicans in the midterms? I mean, you heard Booker very confident that the Democrats were going to swamp the Republicans in the House and Senate. But how do things really look? We'll start with the Cruz seat.
Well, I think Ted's in good shape. The latest Quinnipiac poll shows him 9 points up. But as you know, this is all about turnout. We know the left is angry, the people that are still angry that Trump won in 2016. And midterm elections, we usually see a down dip in turnout. But I think the Kavanaugh hearings have energized our base, and we've seen people like Governor Bressenden in Tennessee said, well, he would have voted for Kavanaugh. But the truth is, if you elect a Democrat this midterm, then we're going to jeopardize our ability to confirm more federal judges and turn the Senate over to Chuck Schumer. And I just don't think the country is ready for that.
No, well, I certainly hope not. Speaking, just back on the Kavanaugh issue for a moment, I devoted a lot of time on my show, Senator, to discussing what next. When the president, if the president gets another Supreme Court pick, the incentive to me seems to be still there for the type of circus we saw for Kavanaugh, and namely, there's no repercussions for leaking a FBI report or a letter or anything confidential that's not supposed to be public. There are no repercussions. So given the fact that there were no repercussions, at least now, there hasn't been yet, do you think it's appropriate for the president, or would you recommend that the president authorize an FBI investigation into how this information about Dr. Ford ended up leaking out to the press?
Well, I have a pretty good suspicion about how it leaked out to the press. As you know, after Senator Feinstein sat on the letter and then sent it to the FBI after the initial hearing, then it was returned by the FBI to the Judiciary Committee's background investigation file, where it was available to every senator on the Judiciary Committee. So my suspicion is that one of the Democratic senators or their staff are the ones ultimately responsible for leaking the letter, or Ms. Katz, Dr. Ford's lawyer, although she certainly didn't serve Dr. Ford's interests very well in the way she handled all of this. But yeah, we're gonna get to the bottom of this. I think there'll probably be an ethics committee investigation, and my hope is the Judiciary Committee will get to the bottom of this, because this is simply unacceptable. And thank goodness we didn't reward this with a success in killing the nomination of Kavanaugh, or this would be the new normal.
Yeah, I agree with you, Senator. I just think it's so important for the country going forward that names, we need to know names. We need to know who did this, and we need to know the extent of the collaboration with outside groups, many of them funded by the political nemesis of the Republicans, and how that coordination occurred. That means people have to preserve their emails and their text messages. I just think, getting involved in ethics, an ethics investigation is fine, but there's nothing like an FBI investigation to really trace what happened, who did it, and someone's lying. Someone's lying here.
Well, I guess what we need to do is identify the jurisdiction, the federal jurisdiction, whether a federal crime was committed here. I hadn't really thought that much about it, but perhaps there is, and that would provide the hook for an FBI investigation. And if there has been a federal crime committed, I would wholeheartedly support that investigation by the FBI.
Senator John Cornyn here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Senator, for the next 3.5 weeks, this is going to be a sprint to the finish for Republicans. I have the sense that the Republican Party is more unified than it's been, I don't know since when. I mean, it seems like all hands are on deck. People are working together. They're not backbiting each other as much. I mean, Jeff Flake is not a fan of the president. He wants a primary challenge. But Marco Rubio said the president will win re-election. You have Nikki Haley saying she's going to campaign for the president in 2020. What is your sense of the Republican unity right now?
Well, I'm more optimistic than I've been in a long time, Laura. I mean, the record of accomplishment with the Republican majorities in the House and the Senate is pretty darn impressive. I know the mainstream media doesn't cover a lot of the success that we've had here, but really this focus on the judiciary and the fact that the Democratic candidates for the Senate are not going to support President Trump's nominees. This has become the crucible in which I think that it has united all Republicans and people all across the political spectrum, from the center right to the right. And so I'm very optimistic, but we just have to keep that energy up. But the fact of the matter is, people like John Tester, who didn't support either Gorsuch or Kavanaugh, and some of the other Democrats on the ballot, McCaskill, exactly, in Missouri, did not support President Trump's nominees, and that, I think, is going to be the issue that's going to pick up seats for us in the midterms.
Senator, your reaction to the Kanye West appearance in the Oval Office yesterday?
I just think it's hilarious that the mainstream media is hyperventilating over that. We all know that President Obama had rappers and other celebrities in the Oval Office during his time, but there is a double standard, as we all know, for this president, and I just thought it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, Michelle Obama invited that profane rapper Common to the White House to read poetry. His stuff is filled with every expletive on earth, but he was up there reading poetry. So, and no one everyone's like, that's great, we're reaching out, it's this wonderful, it's so authentic. And meanwhile, Trump has Kanye West in there. You have to admit, Senator Cornyn, Trump makes things pretty unconventional and kind of holds up a mirror to the Democrats, does he not?
I think so. Well, he makes their heads explode, and they act in all sorts of irrational ways, and we've seen that in the judicial confirmation, but we saw it again yesterday on TV, and I think we just need to get this midterm election behind us. We need to keep the House and the Senate so we can continue making progress for the American people, including adding more federal judges to the bench.
Oh my gosh, that is the judicial branch, co-equal branch of our government. Article 3 judges, we need more Trump nominees on the bench, and we need to clear those through. Senator Cornyn, again, thanks so much for all you did for the confirmation battle over Kavanaugh. You were a rock. I know our listeners appreciate it greatly, and please come back soon.
Thanks, Laura. Good to be with you.
Bye-bye. All right, we'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Stay there.
Thanks for listening to this podcast excerpt of The Laura Ingraham Show. If you'd like to receive podcasts of our complete shows, go to lauraingraham.com and sign up to become a member of Laura 365. Our Laura 365 members get commercial-free streams and podcasts of our shows every day we're on the air. And also, you can listen to the last 30 days of The Laura Ingraham Show. Be ahead of the curve. Join Laura 365.